The death of a powerful Syrian rebel leader could be yet another blow to the peace process. The opposition's interim leader has told Al Jazeera they will attend talks in Geneva next month, but he adds President Bashar al-Assad won't have a future in Syria. The latest threat to talks between the government and opposition groups follows the killing of Zaran Aloush in an airstrike. The National Coalition for Syrian Revolutionary and Opposition Forces is an umbrella organization for the Syrian rebel groups. Now, it says what was carried out by Russia represents a clear victory for terrorism and Daesh. It weakens the Free Army factions that confronted terrorism and undermines its foundations. The attack is also an attempt to abort the UN efforts of a political settlement. Al Jazeera's Hashim Al-Bari joins us live now from Gaziantep near the Turkey-Syria border. So this was the result of very much a targeted raid.
Exactly. The Syrian opposition says that it was a targeted killing of one of its top leaders on the outskirts of the capital, Damascus. I was talking a while ago to the Prime Minister of the opposition interim government. This is a government that was established by the opposition in exile in 2013. And this is basically what he told us. Prime Minister Ahmed Tu'ma said that he's sure that the attack against Zaran Aloush could be a prelude against many top military commanders and politicians in the near future. And he says that he's confident that he's concerned the Russians and the Syrians are willing to go after every single powerful person in the opposition to undermine the whole process.
This area that we're talking about, Hasham, this suburb of Damascus, is called Ghouta. Do we know who's now in charge of Ghouta?
There are basically two rebel factions operating in that area. The most important one is Jaish al-Islam, or the Army of Islam, which was led until yesterday by Zaran Aloush. Now there's a new successor, Abu Hammam al-Buwaydani. This is someone who has been a cleric, very prominent, has very strong ties with different rebel commanders in the area. He's vowed vengeance, and he says that the Jaish al-Islam is going to continue the fight on the outskirts. And there's also the Shamiyat Front, a Salafist group also based in that area. It's very powerful, very well organized, but it also said that it is willing to unite in the near future with different factions, merge in one umbrella organization to continue the fight. Peter, the biggest concern among the Syrian opposition as we speak is that they see that with the Russian airstrikes undermining their groups in different parts of the country, they have only one option: to turn the chapter of divisions, stand united and continue the fight. For them, this is a moment of an existential threat, basically the Syrian government and the Russian airstrikes. If they can stand up to that threat, they are confident they can continue the fight, win it, and then establish their own government. If they stay divided, they're concerned they might soon lose their fight.
Hashem, thank you very much. Well, let's stay with this story and talk now to Rami Khouri. He's a senior fellow at the American University of Beirut. Rami Khouri, does it really matter? Some people are saying it was the Russians, but even if it was the Syrians, what happened, happened, and we have to deal with the reality of that.
That's right. And what happened was that one of the most effective leaders of the Syrian mainstream Islamist but mainstream opposition groups was killed. And this group, Jaish al-Islam, played a very important role at many different levels of maintaining control of the eastern Ghouta area near Damascus. They fought against the Islamic State. They were able to bring together 10, 15 smaller groups when they were created a few years ago. They were represented in the Riyadh conference. They were prepared to talk to the government, negotiate with the government in Geneva or Vienna, wherever the talks are going to happen. And he was a very charismatic leader who had a lot of credibility and real control on the ground and had tremendous support from the Saudis and others. So he represented 5 or 6 critical dimensions of the Syrian opposition groups. And this was a particularly Syrian group with no real foreign fighters, unlike many of the other groups like Islamic State or Jabhat al-Nusra. So knocking him off was a real blow to the mainstream nationalist Islamist opposition, and we'll have to see how quickly they regroup and how quickly the transition to a new leader allows them to maintain that important role on the ground as well as diplomatically.
Interesting that you talk about the new leader. Reportedly, he's already been nominated and named. He's al-Bawadani. What does his presence do to the center of gravity of this particular group, looking forward to, I guess it's now Geneva 3, because we've had Geneva 1 and we've had Geneva 2?
Well, we'll only really know that when we see what happens in the next few weeks or few months. A lot of this depends on personal charisma. A lot of it depends on diplomatic savvy. Some of it depends on the ability of the leader to actually lead on the ground. Al-Lusha's strength came partly from the fact that he was with his troops on the ground all the time and had tremendous credibility with ordinary people. It also depends on his ability, the new leader's ability to work diplomatically with the Saudis, with the Western world, with the UN, with all the other, and the Russians and all the other players who are going to be involved in the Geneva process. But the Russians and the Syrians together, or one of them, killed Al-Lush presumably because they don't want this kind of powerful, credible leader who's willing to engage diplomatically. They don't want that kind of strong, centrist, Syrian-based opposition group to gain ground. And by killing the leader, they think they can knock out the whole group. And again, that remains to be seen. Other groups like Ahrar al-Sham, others have had their leadership wiped out in bombings. Some of them regrouped and continued to work. Others just fell by the wayside. So we'll have to wait and see in the next, I would say, couple of months how Jaish al-Islam deals with this assassination.
Rami Khouri, thank you.